The night on the frontier colony was quiet in the way only distant worlds could be. The sky was dark, heavy with red dust clouds that rolled slowly across the stars. Most people were already inside their homes, lights dimmed to save power. The colony lived on strict limits. Every unit of energy, every piece of food, every breath of recycled air mattered. Ethan Hale lived at the edge of the settlement, where the metal structures ended and the open land began. His small home was half workshop, half living space. Tools hung neatly on the walls. Broken machine parts lay sorted on shelves. He made his living repairing engines and equipment for passing traders who stopped briefly before moving on to richer systems. Ethan was known as reliable and quiet. He did his work well, asked for little, and stayed out of trouble. People did not know much about him, and he preferred it that way. Years earlier, he had lost his family during the long journey from Earth. Since then, he had built a life that was simple and controlled. No surprises, no attachments. Outside, a sudden wind rose, pushing dust against the walls of his home. The storm warnings had come earlier that day, but this one was stronger than expected. Ethan checked the seals on his door and windows, then returned to his workbench. A small engine lay open in front of him, its parts glowing softly under the lamp. Then the door sensor chimed. Ethan froze. No one visited this late, especially during a storm. He frowned and wiped his hands on a cloth. The sensor chimed again, weaker this time, as if whatever triggered it was struggling. He moved slowly to the door and checked the outside camera. At first, he saw nothing but swirling dust. Then the image adjusted and his breath caught. A figure stood outside, barely visible. It was tall but bent forward, swaying slightly. Its skin was a pale blue-gray, stretched tightly over thin limbs. Long ears lay flat against its head, and its eyes reflected the camera's light with a dull shine. In its arms, wrapped in torn fabric, was a small bundle, an alien. Ethan's heart began to pound. Aliens were not unheard of in this sector, but they were rare and most avoided human colonies. The colonial authorities had strict rules. Unauthorized non-humans were to be reported immediately. Harboring one could mean heavy fines or worse. The figure took a shaky step forward and gently placed the bundle on the ground near the door. The movement was slow and careful, full of effort. Then the alien looked up at the camera, straight into Ethan's eyes. There was no anger in that look, no threat. Only exhaustion and fear. The figure's knees buckled. It collapsed against the wall, sliding down until it was sitting in the dust, head bowed. Ethan stood there, staring at the screen. His mind raced through rules, warnings, and risks. He told himself to call the authorities. That was the safe choice, the right choice. But then the bundle moved. A small sound came through the external mic, soft, fragile, a quiet cry. Ethan swallowed hard. He opened the door. The storm rushed in, carrying dust and cold air. He stepped outside, boots sinking slightly into the ground. Up close, the alien looked even worse. Its breathing was shallow. Its skin was dry and cracked in places. The smell of hunger and sickness was unmistakable. Ethan knelt and carefully lifted the bundle. Inside was a baby, no bigger than a human newborn. Its skin was a lighter shade than the mother's, almost silver. Large eyes blinked slowly, unfocused but alive. When Ethan's finger brushed its tiny hand, the baby curled its fingers around him. Something inside Ethan broke. He looked back at the alien woman. Her eyes opened slightly. She made a weak sound, not a word, but a plea. She did not reach for the child. She did not try to stand. It was as if she had already decided that she had nothing left to give. "I okay?" Ethan whispered, though he did not know who he was speaking to. He carried the baby inside first, laying it gently on his small bed. Then he went back out and lifted the alien woman. She was lighter than she should have been, too light. Her body felt fragile, like it might break if he moved her wrong. Inside, he laid her on the floor near the heater. He sealed the door and turned up the warmth slightly, watching the energy meter nervously. Then he stood there, unsure what to do next. He had no alien food. No medical supplies meant for non-humans. All he had were basic human rations and water. The baby cried softly. Ethan knelt beside it. He warmed a small amount of nutrient paste, thinning it with water, hoping it would be gentle enough. Carefully, he touched a drop to the baby's mouth. The baby paused, then swallowed. Ethan let out a breath he did not realize he was holding. Over the next hour, he worked quietly. He gave the baby small amounts of food, watching closely for signs of distress. None came. The baby's breathing steadied, its cries softened. Eventually, it fell asleep, still holding onto Ethan's finger. The alien woman stirred. Her eyes opened fully this time. She looked around, confused and frightened, then focused on the baby. Ethan raised his hand slowly, trying to show he meant no harm. "You're safe," he said softly. "I think, at least for now." She did not understand his words, but she seemed to understand his tone. Her shoulders relaxed slightly. She tried to speak, but only a dry sound came out. Ethan brought her water. She hesitated, sniffed it, then drank greedily. After that, she slept. The storm raged outside all night. Ethan did not sleep. He sat in a chair watching them both. His mind was filled with questions. Who were they? How had they survived this long? Why had she chosen his door? In the early hours of the morning, the baby woke again. This time, when Ethan picked it up, it looked at him directly. Its eyes were bright, curious. It made a small sound that almost sounded like a laugh. Ethan felt a strange warmth spread through his chest. At dawn, the storm began to fade. Light filtered through the dust clouds. That was when Ethan heard the distant hum of engines. He stiffened and checked the external scanner. Colonial patrol ships had entered orbit. They were scanning the surface. Ethan looked at the alien mother and child, then at the door. His quiet, controlled life was gone. Whatever happened next, there was no turning back. He reached down and gently adjusted the blanket around the baby. "You're not alone," he said quietly, more to himself than to them. "Not anymore." Outside, the scanners swept closer, unaware that inside a small home at the edge of a forgotten colony, a single human choice was about to matter far more than anyone realized. The patrol ship stayed in orbit longer than usual. Their engines hummed softly through the thin atmosphere, a sound that reached even the far edge of the colony. Ethan felt it in his bones as he stood near the window, watching the sky change colors with the morning light. Every sweep of the scanners felt like a hand reaching toward his door. Inside the house, the air was warm and quiet. The alien mother slept on a padded mat near the heater. Her breathing was deeper now, steadier than before. The baby lay beside her, wrapped in a clean cloth Ethan had cut from one of his old shirts. Its chest rose and fell gently. Ethan had not slept at all. His eyes burned and his body felt heavy, but his mind was sharp. Fear kept him alert. He knew the patrols would begin surface checks soon. They always did after detecting unknown life signs. He moved carefully, gathering supplies. He hid his tools, cleared away anything that could look suspicious. He adjusted the house systems to mask heat output and life readings, something he had learned long ago while fixing old ship tech. It was risky, but he had no choice. The alien woman stirred and slowly opened her eyes. This time, she did not panic. She looked around, then at Ethan, then at her child. Her gaze softened. She pushed herself up slightly, wincing. Ethan knelt beside her. "Easy," he said gently. "You need rest." She studied his face, as if memorizing it. Then she placed one thin hand on her chest and made a quiet sound. She pointed to herself again and repeated it. Ethan nodded slowly. "Your name?" She tilted her head, then nodded. "My name is Ethan," he said, pointing to himself. She tried to repeat it. The sound came out broken, but close enough. Ethan smiled before he could stop himself. Communication was slow, but over the next hours, they learned a little. Through gestures, simple sounds, and pictures Ethan drew on a screen, she explained that her people had been starving for many cycles. Their worlds had been stripped of resources by stronger species. Help never came. Ships stopped arriving. One by one, her people disappeared. She showed him a symbol scratched into a small piece of metal she carried. It was worn smooth from touch. It meant something like family, or home, or hope. She pointed at the baby and then at Ethan, her eyes filled with tears. Ethan understood. She had chosen him because she had nothing left to lose. A sharp knock hit the door. Ethan froze. Another knock followed, harder this time. "Colonial Patrol," a voice called out. "Routine inspection." The alien mother pulled the baby close, fear flooding her face. Ethan placed a hand between them, steady and calm. "Stay here," he whispered. "No sound." He walked to the door, heart pounding, and opened it. Two officers stood outside in armored suits. Their helmets reflected the dusty light. One held a scanner. "Morning," the first officer said. "We're checking for unauthorized activity." "Of course," Ethan replied evenly. "Go ahead." The scanner hummed as it swept the room. Ethan's adjustments helped, but not perfectly. The device paused, flickering slightly. The officer frowned. "You running modified systems?" "I repair engines," Ethan said. "Old habits." The second officer looked around the room. His gaze lingered on the closed door to the back area. "What's back there?" he asked. Storage, Ethan said. Parts, nothing exciting. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then from behind the door came the faintest sound, a baby's breath. The scanner beeped softly. The officers turned sharply. That's a life sign, the first said. That's not human. Ethan took a slow breath. His hands trembled, but his voice stayed steady. There's a mother and a child back there, he said. They're starving, they need help. The officers exchanged looks. You know the law, the second said. Unauthorized aliens must be reported. You could be charged. Ethan nodded. I know. Then step aside. Ethan didn't move. I won't, he said. Silence fell heavy between them. I'm not hiding criminals, Ethan continued. I'm protecting a child. If that's a crime, then I'll face it, but I won't let them be thrown back into space. The first officer hesitated. His grip on the scanner loosened slightly. You don't understand what you're asking, he said quietly. I understand exactly, Ethan replied. Humans didn't survive by turning away from those who needed help. The baby cried then, louder this time. The sound cut through the tension like a blade. Something changed. The second officer lowered his weapon. Sir, he said slowly, we've got families back home, kids. The first officer closed his eyes for a brief second. Then he powered down the scanner. We didn't see anything unusual here, he said. Ethan felt his knees weaken. The officers turned and walked away. Their footsteps faded into the dust. Ethan closed the door and leaned against it, shaking. The alien mother watched him with wide eyes. Then carefully she stood. She walked to him, slow but steady, and bowed her head deeply. Ethan shook his head. You don't owe me anything. But she reached out and placed her hand over his heart. Days passed. Word spread quietly through the colony. A mechanic was hiding someone, a child. No one said it out loud, but people understood, and they helped. Food appeared at Ethan's door, medical supplies, warm blankets, no notes, no questions. The alien mother grew stronger. She learned human words. Ethan learned hers. The baby thrived, laughing often, curious about everything. The child reacted strongly to human voices, to music, to touch. It learned quickly, watching, copying. It took its first steps holding onto Ethan's fingers. Colonial authorities received reports from other systems. Stories of humans sheltering refugees, of ships turning back to help instead of passing by. Pressure grew. Eventually, a council decision came down. The alien mother and child were granted protected status. When Ethan heard the news, he sat down and cried. The alien mother chose to stay. She named her child with a human word she had learned and loved. Home. One evening, as the sun set red and gold over the colony, Ethan watched the child toddle across the floor toward him, arms outstretched. He lifted the child easily, laughing as it grabbed his face. In that moment, Ethan understood something deep and true. Humanity's greatest strength was not its ships or weapons or reach across the stars. It was the simple choice to open a door when someone had nowhere else to go.